Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hawk Blogger. This is going to be a fun one today. We get to start with our good friend Mike Randle from FTNFantasy.com. Coming to us, we'll talk about all things fantasy football, Seahawks, FTN, and data-related edges for the Seahawks, as well as some betting items. And then we've got a new segment I will debut a little bit after that, and some state of the Seahawks in general. I will talk to you about that real soon as well. But we get to start with our good friend Mike Randle. How are you doing, Mike?
It is appropriate that you have a hat of Banff, one of the beautiful places here on earth. And it's a beautiful day in the fantasy community because we have news today, Brian. We're going crazy over here at FTN. Of course, the trade of Davante Adams to the Jets. So a lot of things going on. Really excited for the upcoming week.
Well, you hit it on the head. We got to start there since that news is literally just broken a few minutes ago. Talk to folks about what just happened and what the significance of that move is from a fantasy football perspective.
Yeah, Brian, there's panic setting here over here in New York with the Jets because they brought Aaron Rodgers in. He got hurt last year. They're all in. Woody Johnson has not had a home playoff game here for the Jets since 2003. So there's a lot of anxiety. That loss to the Bills was rough last night, but Davante Adams, I guess, flew in on a red eye from what reports were, and he's getting traded for a conditional third-round pick. So Raiders get that back. They get Davante Adams, and it's a huge move for them because their offense has struggled. Their defense is pretty good. They fired Robert Saleh. They feel that they need to be in the playoffs, and they have a chance to go very deep. The Chiefs, as great as they have been in the AFC, there's some warts. We can get into that. This big game this week against the Niners, but there's panic here in New York, Brian, because they feel their chips are in the middle. They need to make this happen. If it doesn't happen with Aaron Rodgers and you can't get to the playoffs, then when are you going to get to the playoffs? So bad loss last night, but help is on the way. And this all of a sudden looks like a pretty good Jets offense.
You know, when you're trying to build a championship team, I think the number one highest probability route to take is to trade for a 40-year-old quarterback who's been injured, who has all sorts of interesting perspectives on the world as it stands, and then take your coach who is known for defense, who builds one of the NFL best defenses, fire him, and then demote the offensive coordinator from play calling that was brought in to work with your, and then trade for, by the way, an edge rusher who wants a new contract that you seemingly don't want to give him. And now you're looking to trade him as well in Hassan Reddick. Have they done anything that makes any logical sense in terms of trying to build a winner there? Like, I don't know how you can have confidence as a Jets fan in anything that they are doing over there.
Brian, I love the Bill Belichick sort of shots that he's taken at people. Now he's like Belichick unleashed, unfiltered. And he said, same old Jets on the Monday broadcast. He said, ready, fire, aim. Meaning, like you just said, they do things with no plan, no cogent plan, and they just try to see how it turns out. They always felt they were a quarterback away, but there's a lot more to it than that. There has to be some sort of vision here. And their vision right now is Panic City. This is the last move. If this doesn't work with Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and all the weapons they have and a defense, which is still pretty solid, even though Saleh's not there, I don't know what's going to happen. But they're in panic mode here in the Jets, for sure.
Yeah, the Hassan Reddick piece to me, I mean, a lot of folks think that the logical place for him to end up would be in Detroit. I mean, this is a guy that I think his own agency fired him.
Yes.
So I just don't know that makes sense for him to be a guy that the Lions want to bring inside that locker room when they've got so many things going the right way. And I mean, the Lions are just a perfect juxtaposition for the Jets, a team that's built through the draft, that's built with a clear identity in mind, built with leadership and grit and commitment to what they're trying to do. And the Jets are just all over the place. So, I mean, Davante Adams is an excellent player. He has great chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. Seahawks fans have seen that firsthand in past years when they were with Green Bay. But I mean, I thought Aaron Rodgers had some remarkable throws last night, and this is coming from somebody who's been pretty down on him this year. I just, even if they, win some games, that team is just in bad shape. So,
No, the issue, Brian, the issue is he can still throw the ball. He could go out to the old. Remember, the 1980s, they had the QB competition with the moving targets. He can hit those targets, no problem, but he cannot move laterally. So you need to have superior weapons. And his body language, Brian, is awful. Brees Hall, first quarter, drops a pretty tough pass, but it was on the money. 3rd and 3, and he's rolling his eyes, and it's bad body language. I'm not saying he's not a great quarterback. He is, but things have to go his way, and they have not so far.
yeah. So, Mike, let's talk about what's going on in Seattle. Obviously, it's been a rough road for the Seahawks over the last few games. Um, as they head into Atlanta this week, what are we seeing in terms of? I think I saw the spread has dropped to about 2.5. It had been as high as 3.5. What are we seeing there in terms of the Seahawks versus the Falcons?
Yeah, I think this is a good spot for Seattle. And you and I talked throughout all our visits here about how things go back and forth in the NFL. The Seahawks got off to a good start. Then they regressed a little bit, maybe hangover from the Detroit game where they played exceptionally well. You said that you were out there. We have this at Atlanta 28.4 to Seahawks 24. So 28.4 to 24, 4 points. No edge on the side, no edge on the totals, only a 2.5 point spread. But I'm going to flip this around, Brian. I think this is the perfect opportunity to sort of, for you guys, get right against an Atlanta team that I think is now finally starting going to regress a little bit. They got the win at home against Tampa Bay. They probably shouldn't have. They got the win at Carolina. So again, this goes back to the question last week, which was, is someone going to win 10 wins, or is it more likely that everyone is going to be under 10 wins? I think you're going to see some regression here. And I think this is a really good spot for a potent Seattle offense. And you've mentioned it. The defense has to get healthy. That's the key, is you have not been healthy. And when you are, I think you're going to be real good again.
Well, one of the things I like to do, Mike, when I get my morning started is I pull up ftnfantasy.com. And in fact, I'll just do that right now and share this with folks because I want to see DVOA, I want to see Stats Hub, and I want to see what's going on with the teams that the Seahawks are going to be facing. And in this case, you're talking about an Atlanta team that, if you pull up Atlanta here, they actually have a pretty nice DVOA rank of 10. They offensively are at 6, but defensively they are at 20. And when you dig in to defensive DVOA for the Falcons, there's some familiar issues with Atlanta's defense that is with the Seahawks defense. So the Falcons DVOA on pass defense is 21st. Its rush defense is 18th. So as bad as the Seahawks rush defense has been, it's 19th. This is a team that's really been struggling to defend the run, and one of the ways I'm able to get all this data and information is I'm a subscriber over at FTN Fantasy, ftnfantasy.com. Use promo code HBAM. You get all of this plus Stats Hub, plus the betting model, plus the Discord channel for fantasy football help, for betting help, for everything else for less than $8 a month. FTN Plus is the package you want to get. It's what I get. It would cost thousands of dollars to get this kind of data anywhere else. You're getting it for less than $8 a month. It's a fantastic deal. Use promo code HBAM. So, yeah, I think when I look at this, Mike, I feel like I watched Atlanta against Carolina. That was a game that was very close, and I saw an Atlanta team that loves to run the football, has a couple of really good running backs, and a Seahawks run defense that has struggled. And then I see a Falcons run defense that looks really porous and a pass defense that also looks pretty suspect. And by the way, the lowest pressure rate of any defense in the NFL. So when you look at all that, plus you throw in Geno Smith's history inside dome stadiums, where do you think the fantasy players are in this game that are going to jump out, both on Atlanta and for the Seahawks.
Yeah, you nailed it. The Falcons don't get pressure. I think the key with any NFL team, especially with Seattle, the way they're constructed this year, is the turnovers, Brian. You cannot have the turnovers. So if Seattle doesn't force it and put the ball on the ground and Geno throw an interception, I think you're right in this game. You're going to have an advantage with Jackson Smith and Jigba as the wide receiver 3 against Atlanta. DK Metcalf has struggled the last couple of weeks, but he always can get explosive and break something off the top. Atlanta has struggled against opposing tight ends. One of the big things I think that helped Seattle was Noah Fant's involvement last week. We started to see that going. It's another option for them. Tyler Lockett, always reliable, of course. But I think Fant in the middle of the field will cause them to sort of contract a little bit and open up some big shots. Kenneth Walker looked explosive. Charbonnet wasn't involved as much. But I think your speed, your skill position players, and particularly having Fant and JSN as short to intermediate options should open up plays. I'm telling you right now, if Seattle wins the turnover battle in this game and doesn't have a negative turnover margin, they're going to beat the Falcons.
Well, I think a lot of Seahawks fans would love to see that happen. I think there's some encouraging signs in that Byron Murphy was back at practice yesterday. He's a key part of that defensive line. And the Seahawks made a trade yesterday for Roy Robertson Harris of the Jaguars, who is a starter for that team on the defensive line and is likely to take some of the snaps from some of the lesser backups that were getting snaps before. So we'll see if that can help. On the Falcons side, I mean, who are the guys that you think are must plays in this game going against the Seahawks defense that has been absolutely struggling the last 3 games?
Yeah, Atlanta's smart. They don't have a ton of passing game weapons. I mean, Kyle Pitts is Kyle Pitts. Drake London is solid, Brian, but I don't see him as an elite wide receiver 1. What the Falcons have relied on is their incredible offensive line, which our metrics ranked as the number 1 offensive line coming into this year. And it's driven fantasy people crazy. They are going to use Tyler Algier. So I think Bijan Robinson had the 2 touchdowns last week, but Algier and Robinson are going to be the focus. They're going to run the ball. Mooney is okay. You have to be careful of him with the big play, but he is someone who can be contained. So I think your run defense you have to have a plan to limit their rushing attack because they're going to do that. They're not going to air it out unless they have to. They got behind against Tampa Bay in that game on Thursday night. That's why they ended up throwing the ball. That is not their preference. So you have to be ready to limit their rushing attack, put them in 3rd and long situations. I think your secondary can hold Drake London down and force Kirk Cousins to look to his second option. This is not a team with multiple explosive wide receivers like Seattle. It's pretty much Drake London, Pitts is okay, and Mooney is feast or famine. So the key is going to be your run defense. If you tell me what Algier and Robinson get on the ground in this game, that is the one stat that I would ask, and I think I can predict the result pretty confidently.
We're talking to Mike Randle of FTN Fantasy, ftnfantasy.com. Mike, the Seahawks play the Bills the week after this at home, and the Bills have had kind of an interesting year. They win the game last night, and kind of curious what your take is right now on that Bills team.
Yeah, the Bills came into this year, and there's a huge disconnect. There was a chasm between what fans and fantasy players think of the Bills and what I think the Bills do inside in terms of what they have to do to win. Remember, they should have beaten the Chiefs a couple of years ago in the playoffs. 2 passes, 60 yards. Chiefs end up beating the Bills. What they want to do is limit Josh Allen's turnovers. And you saw it last night, even against the Jets with no James Cook available. They ran Ty Johnson. They ran Ray Davis. They don't have a ton. Curtis Samuel's on the side of a milk carton. Everybody loved Curtis Samuel in fantasy. He's done nothing. Dalton Kincaid, you're not going to run your offense through your tight end. Travis Kelce is an enigma. That doesn't happen. So coming into the year, everyone thought that Dalton Kincaid was going to be this 100-catch, 1,200 receiving yard tight end for Buffalo. He has not been. So they have a series of decent weapons that are okay. Keon Coleman, the rookie's okay, but they want to control the game on the ground. They want to limit Josh Allen's turnovers. They want to run the ball. When they get to the goal line, you saw in the first touchdown, he ran it in himself. That's their game plan. So again, I think the focus here, not to harp on it, is going to be the Seahawks run defense because you're going to see it from Atlanta this week and you're going to see it from Buffalo. The game against Jacksonville which was on Monday Night Football, where Josh Allen threw the ball all over the place. That is an enigma, Brian. They don't want that to happen because they don't trust him to not turn the ball over on a consistent basis.
Mike, what is your favorite play this week, as far as whether it's a individual player prop or a game favorite that you like this week?
I'll give you the double-digit edges we have here at FTN. First off, the Jaguars look like they quit last week on the head coach, and they are now in London still playing the Patriots. We have over 42.5 points at an 11% edge here at FTN. Drake may look good, Brian. He came in, he threw a great deep ball down the sideline to Keyshawn Boutte. I think they're going to put points up. Jacksonville's offense looked pretty good also. It's just that the defense looks like it's struggling. Going to London, Jaguars are already there. I expect them to get off to a hot start. That's a double-digit edge. Another double-digit edge for a total, Lions-Vikings, sort of one of the premier games here on the slate, under 49.5. The Vikings defense coming off a bye week has been legit. Detroit's defense, even without Aiden Hutchinson now, prayers up for him, still looks like it can cause problems. It did for Dallas last week. This is a divisional game. First place is on the line. We have the under 49.5 as a double-digit edge. This one I love. Miami +3 is a 26.2% edge against the Colts. Wow. The Colts defense is not good. Is it Joe Flacco? Is it going to be Anthony Richardson? I think if it's Anthony Richardson, I like this even more. I would get this number now, Brian, because you don't want it to get under that magic number of 3. So we have that as a 26% edge. And then the other one we talked about, I'm going to duck when I say this. We do like the Niners to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs have been dealing with borrowed time. They won the first game. Isaiah Likely's toe was on the line. They won the second game. Bucker with the field goal as time expires against the Bengals. They won the third game. They tackled Kyle Pitts in the end zone. No pass interference. So the Chiefs, as great as Andy Reid is and as great as Patrick Mahomes, they're both fantastic Hall of Famers. They sort of have been dealing and averting disaster. The injury to Pacheco, the injury to Rashee Rice. You're telling me that Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be your wide receiver 1? This could be a get-right spot for the Niners. I'm sorry. We have that as almost a 10% edge as well. The Niners at home against the Chiefs.
Well, let's hope that this is one of those situations where FTN gets it wrong. In that case, I would certainly love to see the 49ers drop that game. Seahawks did nothing to help in that situation by increasing their confidence, but that's just how it goes, Mike. Hey, that is Mike Randle of FTN Fantasy at Randle Rant. Mike, thank you so much for coming on today.
You're doing great work, Brian. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Everyone, check out him at Randle Rant on Twitter and head on over to ftnfantasy.com. Use promo code HBAM. And you too can get access to Stats Hub, to the betting model, to the Discord channel, to DVOA, all the stuff. It is well worth it and a great way to get a lot of content and a lot of information that I personally really enjoy. So we are going to debut a new segment, and I will warn you at the front that I don't know if I have control over the volume of what is about to happen. So hopefully this doesn't blow your ears out. But here we go. Here is a new segment I like to call HB Voicemails.
Time to rise and shine, it's clear. HB Mornings voicemails here. Play and laugh, let go of fear. Start your day with cheer, my dear.
There you go. We have got some HB voicemails to listen to, and the first one we're getting here is from Ryan Boyce, I should say. Ryan Boyce has this voicemail, and hopefully you guys can hear this one. Well, people are saying they cannot hear. No audio yet. Oh, hold on. That shouldn't be the case. I think I know why. Hold on. We will fix this. Yes, we will fix this. All right, let's do this one more time. This first voicemail is from Ryan Boyce. All right, here you go. People are saying still no. Wait a second. That should not be the case. I think I fixed it, but we'll try one more time. This should be working. And let's this should be working. At this point, I've done what I was supposed to do. All right. Still no. Huh. Let me see if a different tab works. This is odd. This is not how it usually works. Let's see. Ah, now I got it. Now we got it, folks. All right. After all of those false starts, this will work. I promise you this will work.
Curious your thoughts on what I would deem the course correction that happened in the San Francisco game in terms of the offensive being extremely conservative. Runs on first and second down specifically. It seemed like the narrative coming out of the Giants was run the ball, but we haven't really ran the ball well all season, and we were just one game removed from carving the Lions when everyone was just enamored with our offense. Did Mike just tell Grubb, you got to run the ball? To me, my concern is that Mike's pulling a little bit of Pete and trying to implement that offensively. When it was clear against the Niners, our advantage was passing the ball and through the air against their weak corners. Curious if this is going to be kind of a thing moving forward for our offense.
So great question there from Ryan, and thank you for sending that. And a couple things that I'd kind of see a little differently. So first, I don't know that I would say that they have not run the ball well all season. The Seahawks have actually, certainly the first game of the season, the second half of that game, they dominated on the ground against the Broncos, and that was a big reason why they won that game. I would say that when Kenneth Walker has been healthy, that was game 1, and then game, 4 against Detroit. Kenneth Walker did a great job running in that game as well. The Seahawks ran for more yards against that Lions run defense than any other team this season has done, and more by quite a bit. Now, granted, again, it came a little bit more in the second half, but they were effective running the ball with Kenneth Walker. So then you have the Giants game with Kenneth Walker where he barely gets used. And so then you get this overcorrection. So I guess I would start by saying I don't think the Seahawks have been ineffective at running the ball all year. So that's one. Two, I'm not totally sure I would agree that the best way to attack the 49ers was to attack their corners. That might have made some sense, but in this case, I think it did make some sense to try to attack them on the ground. I have a concern here that matches, I think, what the basic question that you're bringing up is, which is they really struggled 2 games in a row in terms of like getting the run game going, or at least doing it enough. And in the Giants game, it was so egregious that Mike McDonald really came over the top and was like, "Hey, we're gonna run the ball." And then Ryan Grubb mea culpa'd and said it is my fault. We're got to run the ball more. And then what you saw was a very simplistic is one way to put it, but just kind of what's the word? It was just it was forced. It was forced to get the run game going. And so I feel like Mike McDonald definitely had a say in that. I think that the way that they tried to get the run game going was not particularly inventive or creative or likely to succeed. I do think the 49ers run defense was extremely suspect and has been most of the year. So I think it was fine to try to attack it. But I think that if you're going to, just do a run, pass kind of thing, you're really setting yourself up for trouble. And with all that said, it was kind of working in that first drive until Geno threw that interception. So yeah, I think the Seahawks are still trying to figure out who they are. I think they need to mix it up a little bit more. I saw a stat today that showed the Seahawks were passing, over expected, especially on early downs, more than almost any other team. And that's been working pretty well for them. So I do feel like they need to do what they do well and not overcorrect. At the same time, they can't go games where Kenneth Walker's getting 5 carries. Like, they just can't do that. There's no way Geno's going to survive a season that way. They can't pass protect that way. And you really got to get Kenneth Walker the ball. So I do think they need to have a little bit more mix there. And we'll see. This is a great opportunity this week in Atlanta to get that. Getting some mixed reviews in terms of whether or not you guys can hear the audio. It seems like it's working for people. So I don't know if people are maybe behind and maybe that's why they're not hearing and ultimately getting caught up. But you should be hearing everything at this point. This next one, let's go to our next. Let's go to the next voicemail.
What up, 12s? This is Old School Seahawk. First and foremost, I want to express my gratitude to you, Hawk Blogger. Obviously, none of this happens without you. I want to say how much I appreciate your family and the sacrifices they make to make this possible. Appreciate your co-hosts, your guests, the YouTube members, the Patreon members. Most importantly, I appreciate you people in chat and my fellow moderators. Love you guys. That's the other part of this thing that makes the engine go. I have 3 questions, and they're all for you, Brian. What has been your biggest challenge so far? What has brought you the most joy so far? And what has been your biggest surprise so far? Take care, all. Let's go, Seahawks.
Well, that was fun. Hey, Old School. Good to hear from you. My memory's shot. So let's get those last 3 questions one more time.
What has brought you the most joy so far?
Okay, what has brought me the most joy so far? I think the first road trip that you all helped make happen was amazing. Going to New England, where I've got a lot of family, and going to sit in the press box and then do the post-game show on the field afterwards, and seeing the Seahawks win that game, which was very cool. That was amazing. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a bucket list experience because I would have never even thought to put it on a bucket list, but it was pretty amazing. And I had a pretty big high from that. So that was awesome.
And what has been your biggest surprise so far?
Okay.
What has brought you the most joy so far? And what has been your biggest surprise so far?
So biggest surprise. I must have missed.
What has been your biggest challenge so far?
Biggest challenge. Okay. Biggest challenge and biggest surprise. Those are the last 2. So biggest challenge. I think that it's now where the team has been struggling. And for me, part of the last 10 years probably of managing my Seahawks love and fandom has been when things go really bad and everyone gets really pissy and, all they can see is negative. I usually try to give myself some space. I focus on other things. I do other things. And now that I'm doing this show every day and it's my job, I don't get the same distance that I like to do just to keep my mental health where I like it to be. And, like, for example, I tweeted out something over the weekend about how Dallas was looking different against the Lions than the Seahawks did. And I didn't tweet that out because I thought it meant that the Seahawks deserved a ton of praise and everyone should feel positive. But it was like, hey, look, this is a team that just a few days ago went toe to toe with the Lions when their defense did absolutely nothing well, and they did it in Detroit. And they had every chance to tie that game if the refs had made a different call, if a couple things had gone differently. And I could have predicted the responses, but all the replies are just like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. And yeah, that was 2 games ago. And this team's awful. And that kind of energy for me, when anyone's trying to offer a ray of hope and everyone craps on it, like I just in general don't love that way of engaging. And so that's a challenge, and I'm going to have to figure that out. I mean, I want to do this long term, and if I'm going to do that, I have to find ways to stay close to what's going on and stay engaged with all of you without getting burned out and annoyed, because the last thing I want is to just stop enjoying football and stop enjoying Seahawks football, and that's what can happen if you're not careful. So that's my challenge. Biggest surprise, I think it's been all of you. I mean, it's been really cool to have such a great community go around this that I didn't necessarily anticipate would grow the way it's happened, and that we've managed to have a really positive, kind, supportive community grow around this, which I think is something I value and treasure quite a bit. And so, that's been really, really cool. And I love the relationships that I've seen develop here. And so that's been a really cool surprise. So those are the 3. Thank you for that, Old School. Great to hear from you. Let's listen to this last voicemail.
Hi, this is Hawks fan Matt Man, and my question has to do with the importance of this 10-day mini bye week. Obviously, we're all hoping that they can use this time to clean up some of the procedural mental mistakes we've been seeing and start to turn a corner this season. But if that doesn't happen and they do continue to struggle, I'm wondering how much faith would you lose that this is something that can be fixed this year? Thanks. Hi, this is Hawks fan Matt Man, and my question has to do with the importance of this 10-day mini bye week.
Yeah. So first of all, great to hear from you, Matt. So great to kind of put some voices to the names here, and you kind of hear personalities in tone and delivery. So it's really cool. So I think Matt's trying to get at, all right, hey, yes, we had the 3 games in 11 days crucible that we kind of tried to run and didn't do a great job of. Now you get a little mini bye with this Thursday night to Sunday, so you get some extra time to prepare. How much faith would you lose if they get that extra time and they go into Atlanta and they still look bad? Well, I mean, here's the thing. Here's where my mental state is with this team. I'm in it for the long run. I do believe in this coaching staff, especially Mike McDonald. I believe in Ryan Grubb. I believe in these guys, and I think they will get it right. I don't know exactly when. So this weekend is not like this litmus test for me about, okay, are they good or not? It is going to be, all right, how much progress can we make with a little bit of time? Because this Atlanta team has been playing pretty darn well. This Atlanta team's been putting up a lot of points. They are running the ball really well, which has been your major weakness on defense. Is it realistic that you go from 3 games of just porous run defense and 4 out of 6 games of porous run defense, and then all of a sudden you just stone them on Sunday? That feels unlikely. Do I think that they should show some progress? Yeah. But here's the thing. If you watched my show on Sunday, when I went back and watched the run defense against the 49ers, I think they actually showed progress in that game. Now, when you give up 220, 230 yards rushing, you're never going to put that up on the board as like, here's the game where we made progress. But if you watch the plays, they did. They played the run better in that game than they had in the previous games. And I think getting back Byron Murphy is big. I think getting Roy Robertson Harris, depending on whether he's going to be ready to play, will be a big addition. And so, yeah, I'm not building this game up as the litmus test for the coaching staff. I think Jeff Simmons is my co-host, but this is, if you have any hopes for this team to get to like 10 wins, you better win this game. Like this isn't the easiest game, but it's a winnable game. And if you don't win this game, it gets pretty hard to find the path to 10 wins the rest of the year. So, I think it has a lot more meaning for just kind of what the season can be than anything else. So that was the voicemail segment. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed that after the fun false start we had there. If you want to send me voicemails or any of the shows, feel free to just open up the voice memo or the voice recording app on your phone, record a quick voice memo, and then attach it to an email, send it to me at brian@hawkblogger.com, and I will play it for all of us to hear and respond to. Fun way to get engaged with all of you. I do have one more, but that is going to be for Real Hawk Talk. That'll be tomorrow night at 6 o'clock with Evan, Hill, and Jeff Simmons. So that will be fun. So make sure you tune in for that. While I was talking, I saw that Larry O'Keefe is celebrating his 1 month anniversary as a member. Larry, thanks for sticking with us and being part of the community. Really, really appreciate it. Great to see. Great chance for everyone else to join as a member. It would be great to see you join as well. So let's talk about the kind of title of this episode, which is the state of the Seahawks. And, I've been obviously reflecting on this a lot, and I think people are in very different places. People don't believe me that I see tweets about firing Mike Macdonald. I mean, I literally just saw a whole thread on it this morning with a lot of people contributing to it on Twitter. So, I'm just going to set aside all the histrionics. I'm going to set aside the this looks like, bad coaching, or this looks like, people talking about Jim Mora Jr. and all, I find that all bizarre conversations to have 6 games into a season of a new regime. And I want to just strip things back and talk about where this team is in different phases. And let's just make it somewhat simple. Let's go run offense, pass offense, run defense, pass defense. Okay. And let's start with maybe the most concerning of those 4, which is run defense. This is fundamentally affecting every Seahawks game because they are not able to get off the field. They are not able to get teams into more obvious pass situations where their pass rush can take impact and have effect. It's also affecting their ability to get turnovers because if you're not able to get into more obvious pass situations, you're not able to, maybe get the quarterback into a moment where he's going to make a mistake. You might not be able to surprise a team in a way that you normally would want to be able to do because the opposing offense is running the ball and getting into advantageous downs and distances over and over and over again. So I don't think there can be any doubt that this is the biggest issue on the Seahawks team. And if you break it down a little bit further, what everyone's done is they've just said, okay, they say the defensive line's not good. Well, actually, if you watch, the defensive line's doing just fine. I don't think there's been a few places where the defensive line could be better, and I think the rotation has been thin, especially with Byron Murphy out. Byron Murphy can come back and stay back, and now with Roy Robertson Harris, I think the defensive line is in a very good position, and I think that I'm comfortable with the way they're playing. I think they're not dominant, but I think they're playing very well, and so I don't have a problem with the defensive line. The linebackers. Everybody's favorite whipping boy is Tyrell Dodson. The linebackers in general, the coaches have mentioned that that's been an issue in terms of run fits. And I've shown you on my film study that has been an issue. I'll tell you this, though. Tyrell Dodson said I had a lot of things to say yesterday about how he is going to, he's going to keep working on this. He is totally accountable, that things are going to get better, that he and Jerome Baker are working. And here's the thing that nobody wants to say, because excuses don't matter. When the things are going badly, they're going badly, and they're just, it's awful to watch, and you don't want to hear it. But Jerome Baker and Tyrell Dodson got basically zero practice time together through OTAs and through training camp. And their communication, their chemistry about who's going to shoot what gap and when, and figuring each other out, just never really had a chance to develop. And so, unfortunately, we are seeing those two get accustomed to playing together on the field. And even worse than that, Jerome Baker missed some time this season. And so really one of the first times they've had multiple games playing in the same game together was during this stretch where there has been no practice during the last basically 2 weeks. So I do think that there is something going on with those two guys just getting a chance to get some time together. And if we look at, I'm just double checking injury situations with Jerome Baker. Yeah. So by the way, this is, I think, the first 2 games in a row that Jerome Baker and Tyrell Dodson have played together all year. So they might have done it the first 2 weeks of the season, except in New England, Jerome Baker left with his hamstring injury, so he didn't really play the full game. So really, these last 2 games were the first time that those two have played 2 games in a row together, and again, no practice. So I do think that matters. Doesn't mean it's an excuse, but I do think it might take a little bit of time for those guys to get accustomed to working together in this defense. And I'll tell you what, I am a huge Tyrell Dodson fan. I think he's a great guy. I think he's going to work his ass off. I think he is physically very willing to stick his head in there and make like big time run stops. He's got some work to do in learning when to jump gaps, when to shoot a gap. I'm not seeing a lot of linebackers shooting gaps, but I am not out on Tyrell Dodson. You're only going to hear that on this show. Every other person, probably even my co-host, all are out on Tyrell Dodson. I'm not out on him, and I'm really looking forward to seeing, hopefully, him make some corrections this week and beyond. Jerome Baker, I thought actually played a pretty good game against the 49ers, played a physical game, which is not necessarily what he's known for, but I thought he did play a nice physical game. He had 1 or 2 mistakes, and they were costly, but I think in general played a good game. I do think that Tyrese Knight is a guy I've asked about and I think should be getting some more time, but so far Mike McDonald has been pretty steadfast that he is the backup. The thing that Tyrese Knight has going for him is instinctually he knows how to find the football. And I think he might have the best instincts of the 3 in terms of finding the football, but there's other things he doesn't know as well and is not as disciplined in, and I'm sure the coaching staff would be uncomfortable putting him out there. But I do think that is I wouldn't call it an ace up their sleeve, but he is another card that they can play if things really just don't change at the linebacker level in terms of run fits. I think that is Tyrese Knight's strong suit, and I think we could see him get some more time. So I think that's another thing that could happen, and we'll see from there. Safety play, as far as, and this is again, run defense. Rayshon Jenkins was a revelation. Julian Love was fantastic in the Broncos game, coming up to support against the run. That was a game where I think they knew that they could be aggressive coming up against the run, that Bo Nix was not going to pass it deep down the field. We haven't seen that as much in recent weeks. And Rayshon Jenkins in particular, I expect more from him in run defense. I think some of the issues that we saw in the 49ers game were when he was coming from deep safety looks as opposed to being in the box. And I think that is something that he has said he is most comfortable playing close to the line of scrimmage. I think the big nickel that they play with him is something where he feels the most comfortable. And I think we might see more of that. And I think we might see more mixing and matching of which fronts, like in front of them, are being played under which coverage shells behind them. And this is going to be an interesting one this week against the Falcons. I'll get into that more in detail tomorrow, but you've got a team that loves to run the football and has a very capable quarterback and some capable receivers. So you have to be smart about how you do it. But I think big nickel might make sense here, especially knowing how much they like to use their tight end. So I think the run defense made strides. I think that we also saw coaching adjustments where they went to less light box situations, which is where the majority of the issues were the beginning of the year. They went to more neutral box, which they did well in again against the 49ers. So I think you're going to still see more neutral box situations. I think you're going to see more 3 down lineman situations. And I think that's going to improve this run defense. So I think we're going to see improvement there. Let's talk about pass defense. So pass defense has been a little bit challenged by, like, the Detroit game is what's going to be in everyone's mind. There were some busts there, and they were in partly due to some guys getting injured. Julian Love coming out of that game. Kayvon Wallace and Kobe Bryant really struggled in that game and made some mistakes that made what was a bad game worse. But, against the Giants, coverage wasn't the major issue in that game. Trey Brown was specifically an issue in that game. And, I think that realistically, Trey Brown is going to get challenged. We don't know if he's even be able to play this week. My concern with the pass defense is we are not seeing enough of the pass rush getting to the quarterback. We are getting pressure. The Seahawks are a top 7 pressure creating team in the NFL, but we are not getting enough hits. We are not getting enough sacks. And this coverage group right now, especially with Reek Woolen potentially missing his 2nd straight game, with Trey Brown potentially missing a game, with Artie Burns, who knows, he may be out for the year. This toe issue, like, he probably needs surgery on the toe. No one's told me that, but when you get these toes and you try to come back and you re-injure it, it's likely something that is just gonna stick with him and you won't be able to recover from. But who knows? I thought he was out for the year in the beginning, in the preseason. He came back and played. But they're going to need the pass rush to be excellent, at least until Reek Woolen gets back. I think the coverage in general has been okay. We have not seen a lot of over-the-top explosive plays for the Seahawks. Generally, what we're seeing is explosive rushing plays. And again, we're seeing a lot of these short yardage situations. Even Trey Brown, when he was getting beat, these were like 3rd and 5 kind of plays on slants, where that's not great and it's a problem. And I'm not going to try to say it's not, but this is not as much the big beats down the field. And so I think teams don't feel comfortable trying to attack the Seahawks down the field because I think they respect the pass rush. And if that's the case, then the Seahawks are going to have to figure out how to be more effective in covering the middle of the field. I think that's where a lot of these things are coming. I think honestly, I would love to see them play more man defense than they've been playing. I'm curious. I'm going to go to FTN Fantasy here to check this out. I'm curious where we are with our man coverage in terms of percentage of man coverage. So let's go to defense. Let's go to receiving. Let's go to advanced. And I think the Seahawks chose not to play as much man coverage against the 49ers. And I think that that's unfortunate. So, as far as man, interestingly, at least according to FTN, the Seahawks are 3rd in the NFL in man coverage percentage. I'm not sure I buy that, but that's interesting to see. I think that man coverage is where they're best at, and I think we need to do that and stay out of some of the zones. I don't think the zones are tight enough right now, and I think teams are able to find big gaps. So, I mean, like, summary on pass defense is, I think the pass rush has got to be more disruptive. It's already creating a lot of pressure, but it's got to actually blow up some plays. I think that we've got to get we've got to weather this storm until Reek Woolen gets back. I think that they don't. Nehemiah Pritchett had some decent plays, better than I would have expected. Hopefully he continues to do that because they're going to need him to. But, you know, it's going to be tough for the Seahawks to be a great coverage team if Reek Woolen's out and Artie Burns is out. That's just a lot. That's a lot of guys going down, and then Trey Brown potentially being out as well. You're getting really deep down into the corner unit. In that case, you're talking about Kobe Bryant starting to play more corner. You're starting to see a lot of challenges there. We'll see if Jarek Reed can help. I think it's a lot to ask Jarek Reed to come in and be a solution at safety or at nickel corner. But I'll tell you what, the guy looks. I mean, he's been working his butt off. He wants to be out there so bad. So I am looking forward to him coming back, and we'll see if he can help at all. So then on run offense, I think that the run offense has generally been okay, and there's been some signs of progress there. But last week was bad. I think I put a lot of that on the game plan. I don't think that they had a lot of creative run calls in that game or when they chose to do the run. And I think that that's just not going to work. I think you got to run at some less obvious times. I think you have to mix up the runs and how much is outside versus in. I would love to see more misdirection on some of these runs, which we haven't seen as much as I had hoped from Ryan Grubb. So I think I put a lot of the run game issues on Ryan Grubb's shoulders. I feel like it hasn't been well called or well timed. And at the same time, we have seen some really great moments from Kenneth Walker and some great moments from Zach Charbonnet. So I do think that there's promise in this run game. I don't know that I see that it's going to be a dominant part of this team, but I do think that it can be much more of a factor than it's been. I think that the offensive line has done better across the board run blocking than they have pass blocking. And so I would like to see them get more chances to continue to try to get push, to try to get some plays that they feel really good about that they can run repeatedly, because we just haven't seen enough runs for them to even know which of these plays they block well, how to learn on the job. Again, remember, no practices for the last couple of weeks, basically no padded practices for sure. These guys got to get used to figuring out how to block for this run game, and I think they'll stick with it. So I'm not super worried about the run game. The pass offense, I think, has been pretty good. I think that I do believe it will also get better once you start getting some, whether it's George Fant at right tackle. He is eligible to come off the disabled list this week. I think he probably won't, but Stone Forsythe has done the best he can, but I mean, he is just getting exposed. And I think George Fant is a more passable right tackle. And I think there's a reason that you signed him, so you didn't have to play guys like Stone Forsythe all year. I know people don't want to hear about Abe Lucas, and I get it. Once he comes back, I think that's a big assist both in the run game and the pass game. And they're just being cautious to make sure he stays back when he comes back. But look, Geno Smith had a bad game against the 49ers. There's no really way to say it any differently. It was a bad game. He has been pretty darn good in every other game this season. And so I think you got to feel encouraged about the way he has played, the way that he is involved all three of the receivers. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba have each had moments during this season over different games where they've really taken over and played a big role. Of course, DK Metcalf, it's pretty frustrating that he has not been able to be a more consistent factor. And at the same time, he is the first Seahawks receiver in history to have 3 straight 100-yard games. So, I think that they need more from him. And I know Geno Smith will continue to go to him. I would hope that there were some conversations this week about some of the choices that he made on the field and why those were problematic. And you just got to keep giving him grace and hoping that he's listening and learning. Even if he's not, I think that this pass offense has been pretty darn effective by almost any measure. And so relative to the voicemail we heard earlier, I think they've got to be careful about overreacting to number of run plays versus number of pass plays. I think they've got to do what makes them an effective offense. And so far, being up tempo and getting the line of scrimmage and giving Geno a chance to assess and make a call at the line has been pretty effective. And I think that they need to make sure that they continue to lean into that and continue to find ways to build on top of that, as opposed to that being their only method and mechanism of moving the ball. So, I mean, when I look at this team, I don't see something that is as bad as the last 3 games have indicated. I think if you look at the Detroit game in isolation, that was a fantastic game for the offense, a really encouraging game for the offense, and a terrible game for the defense where, yes, they were missing a lot of players, and then they lost more players, and the Lions are a juggernaut. I think the Lions are the closest thing to a great football team in the NFL, and they took it to the Seahawks defense, period. Then you go to the Giants. The Giants game is the one that's inexcusable. That Giants defense is legitimately good, but the Giants offense is not. And so the fact that the Seahawks defense still got run over in that game was a massive issue. I think I saw changes and corrections from that game to the 49ers game, but there were still some busts, and they were huge, and they ended up making it feel like nothing had changed. When you look at the play by play, I think a lot changed between those 2 games. So I feel like this team is in a position where they have an opportunity to really turn a new page this week and really start kind of a new season where they've gathered this information and they kind of know what they have and what they need to change. And this is take 2 on the 2024 season. So I'm not going to put everything on this Atlanta game. I just don't think I don't think that's realistic. I just don't think that's how much is riding on this game. But I do think it's a fantastic opportunity for this team to turn a corner that they have not yet turned. And I think this is a game where they could potentially, you're going to see an Atlanta team that's going to look at the Seahawks run defense and just be salivating with their run offense. A chance for the Seahawks to change the narrative there. And if they slow down the Falcons run offense, and then you're able to tee off pass rush wise, this is a quarterback that is not going to escape the pocket. This is a quarterback that you can get a hold of, that you can bring down. So I do think there's going to be opportunities there for the Seahawks to get home and for the defense to play a better overall game. And then offensively, I think there's a lot of reasons to feel like this is a game the Seahawks can get right and put up some big numbers. So yeah, I'll get into more specifics when I do first look tomorrow. But while everybody is in the mindset of, Seahawks are hopeless, coaching is terrible, Abe Lucas is never going to come back, woe is me, everything's awful. I get it. I totally get it. And I'm not making fun of you for feeling that way. I think if you really break this team apart, you've got a team that's 3-3 and is playing like a 3-3 team. There's some good, there's some bad. There's some things that are changing and some things that are improving. And this is, I think, the first real opportunity for the coaching staff and the team to be on the same page in terms of getting some practice, seeing the film, understanding that what you've been doing is not going to work and we need to do things differently. If you weren't listening before, you better listen now. And I think that gives a chance for this team to kind of get a fresh start. So that is where I see this team. And I'm really, really eager to see how they pull things together this weekend. 10 a.m. game, another road trip. Let's see how they do. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. If you haven't already given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. Please make sure you head over to ftnfantasy.com. Use promo code HBAM for 15% off. It is less than $8 a month to get access to DVOA, all the data. You will love it. I love it. And I'm a subscriber, so I think you would enjoy it if you were as well. Until I see you again, which will be likely tomorrow morning, I am going to do a show. Tomorrow morning is going to be a really good show, folks. Tomorrow morning, I am bringing in Cody Alexander, Coach Cody. He is going to go through and talk to us about the Seahawks defense. He's going to talk to us about exactly what he's seeing, what of it he thinks is coaching, what of it he thinks is players, what he thinks is fixable and not. So make sure you are here tomorrow morning, and then tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, 6 p.m. Pacific, we will have Real Hawk Talk. So, and I will also be doing my first look show. So it'll probably be a triple pod Wednesday, and we'll do all of that tomorrow. So make sure you tune in for that. All right, folks, thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HawkBlogger. This has been episode 205 of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.